Alright guys, how's it going? Slipstream here, and today we're going to be talking about when you or one of your teammates needs to swap off the hero that you're playing. I actually ran a poll earlier yesterday on Twitter to see what video you guys wanted me to make, so if you haven't already, make sure to go follow me on Twitter, so next time I run a poll, you can tell me what you want to see. Alright guys, with that being said, let's get into the video. Now what you're going to be seeing on your screen is an old gameplay that I got when I was in Platinum, where I started off on Tracer and I wasn't really getting things done. So for the second map, I let my friend swap to DPS, and I end up playing a tank. I started off on Winston because he's my go-to tank, mainly just because he's really good in the current meta, and his play is more based off positioning than anything else. And we ended up winning the second map by a lot. It was a pretty easy game. But for the third map, they ended up swapping to Reaper, and he was just eating me up, so right away I swapped off and went Zarya. From there on, the rest of the match was pretty straightforward, and I honestly feel like my hero swaps either won us the game or made it way easier. And that's why hero swapping is a really important aspect of Overwatch that if you do correctly is going to win you a lot more games. Now with that being said, there are really only two reasons why someone should ever swap off the hero that they're currently playing. The first being that the player in question isn't really performing their role correctly, or playing well enough to get a good value out of that position. The second is that the enemy composition is either really strong against yours in one way, or has a potential to be really weak against a specific hero pick. Now there are several reasons that you or one of your teammates might not be playing your role correctly. It's most likely that you're just not playing well enough, either because you're having a bad game, or you've been out of position, or you're just off for some reason. Another is you might be getting tilted because of toxicity. I know Season 5 has been really tough and toxic for some people. Or maybe you're just uncomfortable on your role and you don't know how to play the hero that you're playing. I know a lot of the time that people will flex to heroes that they don't necessarily feel comfortable on, just so they can build a better team comp in general. Whenever I flex or fill for a team, I always make sure that I'm playing a hero that I know how to play comfortably and will be able to play well enough to support my team, or at least not weigh us down. Another reason that someone might not be filling the role is maybe you or your teammate just isn't good enough to play at this elo. It's really uncommon because in most games, the players are going to be pretty even in skill level unless one player is slightly better than where they are, or where one player is slightly worse than what elo they're rated at. In this case, it's kind of on the rest of the team's shoulders to carry through and outplay the other team despite their play that's holding them back. Now, if you're the player that's underperforming, the first thing you need to do is realize that you're underperforming. The worst thing you can do is be in denial and think that you're not what's holding your team back and blaming it on other players. That's only going to make your team more toxic and nothing's going to improve in general. Being able to call yourself out is really important because you're not going to improve as a player if you constantly think that you're not the problem and you're not holding yourself back or your team back from improving. On the other hand, if you think one of your teammates is underperforming, you need to be really careful about how you handle the situation. If you're too aggressive or rude, you could really tilt the other player just to the point where they're not going to communicate or cooperate with your team. And on top of that, you really want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they just had a bad couple deaths, and they're actually playing pretty good this game, they just got unlucky the past few times. The last thing you want to do is ask a player to switch when he thinks that he's playing really well. But if you're absolutely sure that they're the problem, what you want to do is be really nice about it. Just say, hey, are you underperforming this game? What's the problem? Are you having a difficult time? Do you want to swap onto a hero that you're more comfortable on? Something along those lines, just to help them understand that you're on their side and you just want them to play well. Now, worst case scenario, you'll have a teammate that's either not in team chat or one that's absolutely not going to switch and he's not going to communicate. And in these situations, you just have to make the best of it and try and win with your team, try and communicate with the rest of your team and do as good as you can on your own. And now for the second main reason that you should never switch your hero, and that's the enemy composition. I'd say the most common example of this is when the enemy team is running a Pharah and you have maybe a Tracer or a Genji or a Reaper, knowing that's a direct counter to her. A good option is always to switch off, go Soldier or McCree, and really focus her down. It's worth noting that D.Va is probably also one of the best counters to Pharah right now just because she can soak up so much of her damage and basically leave her useless. And like you see in this gameplay, I went Winston, and the enemy Reaper just immediately is hunting me down, killing me pretty easily, when we're not really gaining that much out of Winston in general because they're not running a Genji or anything. So I decided the safer bet would just be to swap to Zarya, a hero that I'm also really comfortable on, and that I know will do way better against Reaper, who's one of their main DPSs. Now, in these scenarios, you might be playing perfectly well and your team's actually winning the team fights, but this swap is really just to shut down the enemy team and is a way safer bet because you know that you're going to be able to get more utility out of yourself and kind of lock down one of the enemy heroes. Now, if you're going to swap for either of these reasons, it's important to keep two things in mind. First is that if you have an ultimate, especially one that's really high value or has a really big potential like Zarya's Graviton, you're going to want to use that just because you never know, you could still win a team fight and get value out of it. The second is that you're really going to want to swap sooner rather than later. The longer you wait, it's just more time and more points that the enemy can rack up against you guys, and you're only hurting yourself in the long run. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it. I promise that if you follow these tips, you're going to be winning more games, and you're going to see improvement in yourself. But as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.